This is Suman. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The Fascination. All things fascinating about knowledge, learning, music and art and the dots that connect them. Please leave a thumbs up after this video and do subscribe to my channel. Thanks. So today's video focuses on two things. Firstly, the effect or the impact that anxiety and fear have on our minds and bodies. And secondly, how do we rewire the amygdala to reduce anxiety and fear? Right, so let's understand the impact or effect of anxiety on our minds. You're all aware from parts 1 and 2 of my videos that when the amygdala triggers a stress response, it happens very fast and it goes into a fight or flight or freeze mode, right? And when this is happening, the cortex tends to get bypassed, and this condition is called an amygdala hijack, essentially meaning that the cortex, despite having the ability to do something, is not able to do that fast enough. So that is the impact that anxiety has on our minds. Now let's become aware and understand the impact and effect that anxiety has on our bodies. So our bodies have a nervous system, you're all aware. Here we're going to talk about two parts of that, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So let's see. So on your screens, you'll see these two nervous systems, and as you'll observe, the sympathetic nervous system actually stimulates the fight or flight response, right? And it's connected to various organs, and when this happens, the response, there is a likelihood of dilation of the pupils, mouth is likely to go dry, the heart is likely to beat faster, thumping, and you might experience heaviness in breathing or breathing fast. There is also a likelihood that your tummy is misbehaving. So you need to start observing and recognizing these signals. On the other hand, the parasympathetic nervous system is the one which stimulates the rest and digest activities. That's when the body is at complete rest. And this is the state that we would like to be in most of the times, for which we need to rewire the amygdala. Let's see how. Okay, so now that gets us to the first step in the rewiring of the amygdala, and that involves identifying our triggers. And we can do this by a technique called diagramming. However, before that, let's just listen to an excerpt of a conversation I just had the other day with a corporate employee on this current situation. Yeah, hi there. So let's continue our conversation about what we were talking, how you're feeling currently, and go right ahead and tell me.
The news of job losses in the industry is making me fearful of the fact that I am also in the same sector, and hence I might be affected in the same way that my peers in these other industries have been affected. So I'm a little anxious about losing my job.
Okay, fine. So we'll talk about it again. Yeah. Okay, so let's diagram this conversation that you just heard. Now, the word job by itself would not really be a trigger until such time that it gets related, as you would have listened, to the event about job losses happening. The moment the word job gets paired or associated with this event of job losses, it suddenly transforms into a trigger. And you'll see on your screen that as far as the event is concerned, it evokes an emotional reaction. But the other part, that is the trigger, actually learns a new way of behaving, and which is actually living in anxiety or fear. So this is the way in which you can also diagram your anxiety triggers, which will make it easy for you to handle the part of how you want to change that, right? And it's simple. Well, if something is happening in a particular way, the best way is to expose yourself in something that is contradictory to that, right? So that is how you can proceed further from here. Okay, so the next step in this process of rewiring is to identify and make a note of anxiety provoking situations which you want to change. And I would suggest start with one and then build up on that. One of the things you'll notice once you start writing them down is that you will start finding patterns in the triggers. So look out for that. So let's see how it might look. So there are 4 things that we need to write or make a note of in this process. The first one being the anxiety provoking situation itself. And here let's take the example of review calls that happen over video now. So you're having a video call with your boss. That could be an anxiety provoking situation. Once you've written that down, the next thing to write is the level of anxiety that you experience in this kind of a situation on a scale of 1 to 100. And here it could probably be between 80 to 90. Having written that down, create another column, and in that you write the frequency with which this event occurs. Review calls normally happen almost every week, so we'll write down the frequency as weekly. And last but not least, the next thing we write down are the triggers, and the triggers could be many, starting from something which is not so anxiety provoking, like getting prepared for the review, to things that happen during the review, like maybe a condescending tone from the boss, or maybe his facial expression, and so on. So this will give you a very good map of the situation and the triggers, right? So that brings us to application of a technique called the exposure based technique. And as the name suggests, it's about exposure of the amygdala to your so-called threatening situations. And it works on 2 principles. Firstly, that when you expose yourself to a perceived threatening situation, your amygdala is likely to respond in a less fearful manner. And the more often you practice this exposure, the better your amygdala is going to get at a less and less fearful response. So the amygdala needs to be hot, and a metaphor that comes to my mind is a tea bag that we normally use. And let me read this out for you. Putting a tea bag in a cup of cold water won't be as effective in allowing the flavor of the tea to be infused into the water, right? So you need to dip it into hot water. Similarly, your neural circuitry needs to be activated or hot to be able to make new connections. So that brings us to the next step, and that is creating a hierarchy for exposure to this identified situation. So a hierarchy of exposure would look something like this, as you see on your screen. You'll have, starting with the lowest level of anxiety, an activity written there, and the highest level of anxiety that you experience, also written at the bottom. And in between are different other activities in increasing order of anxiety. So once you've done this, all you need to do is start exposing yourself to each of these steps every time that this event is going to occur. And you will find that if you do not deviate and you follow this diligently, with a period of time, you will be able to rewire your circuits of the amygdala and reduce anxiety. Do remember to combine things like relaxation techniques of meditation or muscle relaxation, deep breathing exercise along with this exposure exercise. So here are 4 quick tips and takeaways that you can start applying immediately. First, become more aware and recognize and identify the impact that anxiety may be having on your mind and your body, and make a note of it. 2, identify what are your triggers, like we did. 3, identify anxiety provoking situations and decide to tackle one at a time. And last but very importantly, create a hierarchy for exposure and practice that diligently. In my next video, we'll learn how to rewire the cortex or the thinking brain. Should you wish to know more about the amygdala pathways and where anxiety begins, please look at part 1 and 2, the link for which is given below in the description box. Till then, this is Colonel Sumant Khare signing off. I'd love to know what you think about this video, so please leave your comments in the comment section.